Today, Twitter decides to fact-check President Trump, and Trump threatens to shut social media down. The death of George Floyd, and turns out the death rate of coronavirus, very similar to the flu. You're not allowed to say that, but hey, folks, we deal in truth here at the News and Why It Matters. We've got a lot coming up, and it starts right now. Shut up, yo. Welcome to the News and Why It Matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by the smart aleck over here, Chad Prather, host of the Chad Prather Show.
I just leave the smart out. I'll just be the Alec.
This Alec.
This
Alec over here. Yeah. Chad Prather, host of the Chad Prather Show, and also host of this shirt, this lovely shirt that I'm wearing. Creator.
We are the essential expendables around here.
Yeah.
So that's a very fitting shirt for you to be wearing.
I appreciate it. Where can everyone get that?
WatchChad.com.
WatchChad.com. You too can be an essential human, as we already know that you are. Also joined by the lovely, delightful Amy Robbins, CEO of Alexo Athletica.
Howdy.
Thanks for being here. And also Eric July, BlazeTV contributor.
Yes.
Thanks for being here. All right, got a lot to get into. Let's get to President Trump's Twitter war with Twitter. Usually he's in Twitter wars with like other people, but now he's in a Twitter war with Twitter. So President Trump, of course, his tweets were now deemed conspiratorial. I know that's news that's, ending in the word day, because everyone's always accusing President Trump of dealing in conspiratorial tweets. But he went on to talk about, voter fraud, mail-in voter fraud. And Twitter decided after a lot of pushback that they needed to start fact-checking the president's tweets. So what President Trump tweeted was, Republicans feel that social media platforms totally silence conservative voices. We will strongly regulate or close them down before we can ever allow this to happen. We saw what they attempted to do and failed in 2016. We can't let a more sophisticated version of that happen again. Just like we can't let large-scale mail-in ballots
Take root in our country.
Take root in our country, thank you. Take root in our country. Chad, can you keep going there?
Yeah, it would be a free-for-all on cheating, forgery, and the theft of ballots. Whoever cheated the most would win. Likewise, social media, clean up your act now.
Thank you. And then he added, Twitter is now interfering in the 2020 presidential election. They are saying my statement on mail-in ballots, which will lead to massive corruption and fraud, is incorrect based on fact-checking by fake news, CNN, and the Amazon Washington Post. Twitter is completely stifling free speech, and I, as president, will not allow it to happen. Bigly. Okay? And then he goes on, there's no way that mail-in ballots will be anything less than substantially fraudulent, blah, 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 blah. So here's I think, the issue with this is, as he said, Twitter is now fact-checking the president's tweets. Take away the fact that, Jerry Nadler has said the same thing about mail-in ballots, about voter fraud. Many people on the left have said the same things. President Trump says it, and now it's conspiratorial. But let's look at Michael Knowles. Our friend Michael Knowles at the Daily Wire pointed this out. Let's look at the person who is actually in charge of fact-checking the president's tweets. His name is Yoel, I believe it's Yoel, I'm not sure, Roth. Mr. Roth, head of site integrity at Twitter, is what his Twitter bio says. And just to give you a sense of who this person is, who is determining whether or not the president's tweets are true, here's a tweet from Mr. Roth. Yes, that person in the pink hat is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual Nazis in the White House. Because that's not conspiratorial at all to say that there are actual Nazis in the White House with absolutely no evidence to back it up. Chad, what do you think?
No one thinks Twitter is unbiased. Nobody thinks Yoel Roth is unbiased. We all know that. Nobody thinks CNN is unbiased. So for CNN to fact check, CNN can't fact check themselves. But I will say, when it comes to Trump and his tweets in this regard, I want to call him Karen Trump at this point. It's like he's standing in the Walmart complaining to the Walmart manager about this thing. Private company, yes, they adhered. Twitter can do whatever they want to do, right? They can do whatever they want to do. But as a capitalist company, Trump probably brings in about $1.5 billion to their company every year. So they would do well to just keep Trump happy, because he basically bailed them out when he became president or before. But, I wish that social media companies would go back to what they originally agreed to and adhere to First Amendment principles. They don't have to do that, but it sure would be nice if they did.
Because you said that they can do whatever they want to do, which is true to a certain extent.
To a certain extent. It's a publicly traded company. You still have to answer to share and stockholders, but at the same time, they are a free private enterprise, and that's the beauty of a free marketplace in America. That's the beauty of capitalism. They can do what they want to do. I just wish that they would play by the rules that they set, but that's what we're seeing from so many people who are unbiased. They make the rules, and then they don't play by them.
Yeah, Amy.
Yes, and I mean, come on, using CNN and the Washington Post to be your fact checks. I mean, couldn't they at least maybe throw in something like heritage.org,
like NPR?
Yeah, that put
they're unbiased, right?
I mean, be a little less blatant about it.
Right.
And, I mean, you can go to sites like heritage.org where they've actually identified about 1,200 cases of actual voter fraud that's been prosecuted. And I mean, come on. We know it's happening. No one is sitting here thinking that by any means CNN telling us that this is never going to happen. We don't think that that's real. So, I would like to see Twitter, Instagram, I would like to see them censor a little bit less and be a little bit less unbiased, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, unfortunately, when he says, that first thing that he said, which was a boneheaded thing to say, what he was saying had maybe some merit with his concern of voter fraud or what have you. But unfortunately, stuff like that gets lost when he jumped the shark and he's like, oh, I'm going to regulate him and all this. That's like he's this uber dictator and I'm just going to stop this social media altogether because how dare they fact check me. And that's always been my position when it comes to Twitter and all these other sites that I use. They are free to do that. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it. I call them out in the event that they do something stupid. I do this all the time. And I do think that we do have some sort of contractual obligation, not necessarily so much with Twitter, but certainly with other sites when you look at the terms of service that they have to hold, their end of the bargain as well. And I think they enforce some of these rules very unfairly, and they're not unbiased by any means. But instead of actually addressing that particular issue, instead he's going off the rails talking about regulating them. And then again, this is where I'm like, he loses me almost all the time on stuff like this. He says something like that, which is diametrically opposed to what I would think these conservatives actually advocate when it comes to businesses being allowed to do what it is they want to do. If he just said, y'all are bogus for fact checking me, that what I'm saying is true, here's the proof. Let's shed light on the fact that they're bogus, right? Let's go ahead and do that. We don't have to sit up here and threaten to regulate them with state power. That's unnecessary.
And come on, guys. If Trump really wanted to stop mail-in ballots, he should have been the one to offer that suggestion.
Right.
If he would have just been the one that said we should have mail-in ballots, they would have shut that down, ASAP. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. Use a little reverse psychology on them.
4D chess.
And so you're looking at this headline, and the same day, there's also a headline that federal law enforcement announced that they charged a mail carrier in West Virginia for alleged attempted election fraud. So he got all of these mail-in ballots and he changed them. The mail-in ballots that were given out because of the pandemic, he changed them. And they just charged him with that. So it seems a little odd at a time where federal officials are like, yeah, that's actually happening right now. We're charging people with this. To have CNN and the Washington Post go on and say, Trump falsely claimed that mail-in ballots would lead to a, quote, rigged election. However, fact checkers say there's no evidence that mail-in ballots are linked to voter fraud. Seems a little weird to do that right at the same time that it's literally going on, you guys. It's right here. It's in the news.
Somebody needs to fact check somebody.
Fact check the fact check.
Fact check the
That's
fact
what we need.
Well, to be fair to the story, for those who don't know the story, the guy did change them to Republican votes. Okay, so in Philadelphia, they had a case where they were changing them to Democratic votes, and I know everybody wants to jump on a side and say, "See, I told you what."
It's happening all over the place.
People are dishonest.
It's happening all over the place.
People are dishonest.
Yes.
You give them an opportunity to do that. Look, I was out there. I was out at whatever Texas Freedom Rally spoke at the Capitol Saturday morning, and I'm looking around at some of these folks, and I'm going, y'all are weird. Like, y'all are strange. Like, I'm scared to know what some of y'all would do to win this election, right?
Yeah.
And I say that in love, but they know. They know they're weird. And I don't trust anybody out there You give somebody that kind of ability to. People are thieves, man.
Well, and it also does go to Eric's point, Amy, that you see on both sides of the fence now, there's really no one who is standing up for an objective truth, right? Like an objective, if I believe this is wrong, then I believe this is wrong. If I don't believe in big government tyranny, then we shouldn't be supporting President Trump tweeting out that he's going to regulate the entire world. We should be able to just objectively say, or just say, yeah, I don't like the tweets. But we can't do that these days. We have to just jump on board with every single thing that he says, even when he's talking about really tyranny, to the extent that if the other side did it,
absolutely,
we'd be like, I can't believe Barack Obama said this. It's bizarre to see that happening on both sides these days.
But we don't, and that's why we have the news and why it matters, because that's where we can actually come and call these things out and be very truthful and upfront about, like, look, if we don't agree with a tweet that Trump puts out there, we don't have to be afraid to say anything about it. Like, we're not scared. It's not a crime. Right. Let's check, this is still America. And we can say something.
Yeah, well, it's funny because, Chad, we started out the show, and Chad, you're like, I feel like he's the Karen of Twitter. And I was thinking to myself, Chad's going to get pushback on this, but he's still voting for the guy.
Yeah, okay, so let me go back. I can go back when we were in the other set. I can tell you a year ago, I said, Donald Trump doesn't walk on water. He's not your Messiah. He's not dying for you. He's not the life giver. I mean, an airplane could fall out of the sky and land on Donald Trump tomorrow. The world moves on.
Right.
And to Eric's point, I agree. Trump is kind of like the old adage, you can skin a fox once and after that it gets touchy. Trump's been skinned so many times that everything that happens to him, he just comes out punching. And I liked when he was, and I think it's starting to cause him to maybe potentially lose his base. Because he was playing 4D chess. He was doing things where he was so many moves in advance. And now this counteraction, reaction stuff that's going on, I think is really hurting him.
Yeah,
most definitely. I mean, that's what I would hope he'd be actually afraid of, because he's going to drive his base away. I think really this whole lockdown thing has gotten a lot of people like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
this is kind of odd. Some of these positions that we claim to adopt, we're seeing this craziness and action, and people are losing their livelihoods over this. I think a lot of people are kind of looking at this, I would hope, more objectively. And yeah, he's not Jesus, and it shouldn't, no matter if you're conservative or what have you, it shouldn't kill you to be like, okay, that's not right. You know what I mean? If anything, it should be that base that would hold his feet to the fire to say that's wrong. And that's how you actually get support, when you're like, check them, just check them. Like, hey, you know what? Let's dial it back a little bit. And I think people would have more respect for the base and more respect for him if that was the case. Unfortunately, before we may have saw a little too much of he was in the wrong, and we felt like just because he's on the opposite side of the leftists, like, I have to defend him. And you don't. There's no rules that say that you actually have to do that. You don't. It's okay to be like, okay, what he did here was okay, and I liked it, I agree with it. But when he said this, I don't agree with it. It's fine. It's perfectly fine.
And to your point, his base, really, if there was ever a president who was going to listen to his base, I feel like it's Trump, right? Like he relies on that,
Absolutely.
like that satisfaction of knowing that he's got his people in his corner. And I mean, thus far, there have been other policies that maybe he's backtracked on, and he hears from his base, and you see him kind of change position.
We saw that with the gun thing. Like, it was what was it that he was talking about? I can't remember if it was universal background checks. And he was like, he was seriously considering it, and then a lot of his base was like, no, and then it kind of phased out. He never mentioned it again. So that's good.
With Trump that I don't. It kind of just, boggles my mind is none of us really. Trump champions certain conservative principles, but I think when it comes down to certain things like big government and regulation, he doesn't always fall on the side of being conservative with that. Like, he doesn't champion it. And I think that conservatives for so long have been looking for someone to champion for them and to fight back, that they're willing to turn a blind eye to some of these regulations and things that he's actually a proponent of. forgetting that that's what can get us into more trouble than trying to champion certain social issues and stuff like, and so I think we find ourselves in a really scary place when we don't stand up and start, especially as conservatives, when we see him going against really conservative policies by wanting more regulation and bigger government involvement in our lives. Like, we should be the first ones stepping up and challenging that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have got more coming up, including riots happening in Minneapolis over the death of George Floyd. We will get into that. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Keeps. So, if you are one of the men out there who maybe you're sitting on your couch right now and you're like, oh, I got that stupid gene from my, I don't know, what is it, your mother's side, your dad's side? I don't know, the male pattern baldness gene. That one.
Dig too deep. Dig too deep.
I don't know which side it comes from, but maybe you are one of many men out there who you have to deal with that, and you're embarrassed by it even though you shouldn't be, and you don't want to go to the doctor for it, because men never want to go to the doctor for anything, okay? Trust me, I know. I see you out there, men, okay? This is where Keeps comes in to save the day. Keeps offers the generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products. They're the real deal, and they're also going to save you a fortune because they're generic, right? So you're going to be saving money on that end. It's really simple to do, especially from your couch while maybe you're not locked down, but you're still on your couch because everyone's still scared to go outside these days. All you have to do is you go to the website, you answer a couple questions, you take a couple pictures of your hair, and a doctor evaluates everything, recommends the right treatment for you, and they ship it directly to your door. So you can be lazy while you're saving your hair. You're welcome. We got you half off your first order right now. You can go to keeps.com/Y. That is keeps.com/WHY. Keeps.com/Y for 50% off your first order. Hundreds of protesters in Minneapolis took to the streets today and yesterday to demand justice for George Floyd. Now, George Floyd was an unarmed man who died after an officer just put his knee to his neck, to his throat, as you can see if you are watching and not listening on podcast. The officer's knee directly on this man's throat, this man's neck. Now, the video, there's an 8-minute video that's circulating online that shows the man, George Floyd, saying, please, please, I can't breathe. There were many bystanders, including, I believe, at least 3 other police officers who were there while this was going on. The bystanders were saying, you're stopping his breathing right now. Can you please stop? The officer continued to hold his knee there until they pulled a lifeless George Floyd away on the stretcher. We will not play the video because it's pretty graphic. It's tough to watch. It took me a while to even actually press the play button. I wanted to avoid it for as long as possible, but I felt like it was an important conversation to be had. Now, he was initially detained and arrested for forgery. Again, completely unarmed, Chad. And this is how it ends with his death after being arrested and detained. And from what I saw another video of another angle. He was not resisting. He was walking with the officers. Nothing to merit, I think, such violence from the police officer. Yet I will bring up, all we're hearing is white officer kills black unarmed man, and I don't see that part of the story in any of the fine print. What say you?
There's a lot to analyze with that, from him with his hand in his pocket, the fact that that's not normal procedural arrest tactics. There's 2 other police officers who are on him. He is handcuffed. He is unarmed. There's a lot of things that can be said. The skin color thing doesn't enter into my mind any more than when I saw the situation in the assisted living home with an African-American gentleman who's beating on an elderly white man. It's not a skin color thing. It's not a race thing. It's an inhumanity to man thing, and I'm sick of it. Just don't be a crappy person. And unfortunately, we were seeing this. People say, well, you don't know the circumstances around it. Look, I'm one of the first people who will always give the police officers the benefit of the doubt. 99% of them out there, they're good cops. They're good people who are trying to do a good thing, that just try to come home to their family. This is not that situation. This is a bad situation. There was no excuse for this. I'll tell you how bad it was. I posed this question on an upcoming episode of my show when we taped it. I said, if you were standing there, and I asked our guys in the studio, I said, if you were standing there and you had a concealed weapon, would you have pulled your gun on that cop and demanded that he get off? Because you would have done that had that been just another citizen.
Yeah.
You would have stopped that. I asked myself that question this morning, and I said, I believe, honestly, I would have no choice but to have pulled my weapon and stopped that situation by force. Now, I might have taken a bullet for it, but you know what? I don't think I could stand by and see that unfold if I was an armed citizen.
I think there's so many questions that I have when I'm watching this video, and that's probably one of the biggest ones that I have is why there were so many people standing around videoing it, not doing anything. Have we been so conditioned to trust all authority as if it's the final authority that we don't push back, we don't fight anymore, we don't stand up for justice or what is right? And I think a situation like this, you know, I have my concealed carry license, and I'm, depending on when I walked up on the situation, it'd be a tough decision for me. It'd be hard because I don't know, unless I had all of the facts of the case and what was going on. I don't know if I would, but I would do something. I would want to. I would want to believe I would do something.
Well, that's tyranny.
I mean, that is tyranny.
That's what tyranny looks like.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you can't, the boot on someone's neck, I mean, you can't get any more clear. That's what tyranny looks like.
I absolutely agree with you. But I don't think if you didn't see it all play out and unfold from the very beginning, it would be hard. It would be very hard. But I mean, this is just, I want to get past the point where we just continue to see this racial divide in our country, and it's so inflammatory what the media does every single time there's a case like this, and I hate it. And I don't think that's what this is at this point. This truly is a case of a power-hungry cop just overstepping his boundaries. And again, it goes back to us questioning authority. Like, we've got to get back to a place in this country where we start questioning these things and we start standing up and saying, I see you getting all happy over here and excited.
This is my language.
Libertarian dream right here.
This is my language.
We have to. You think about the founding fathers and you know, they governed themselves, and they didn't have police out there having to govern them and make them abide by the law of the land. And now we're seeing just too many instances, I think. Now, I love cops, I'll make that disclaimer, but there comes a time when you need to be limited in your authority and what you can do, and this is just a really sad case of someone overstepping that.
Yeah, most definitely. This is going to force a lot of people to have some very uncomfortable conversations that I've been having for years about this institution. Now, the thing about this, unfortunately, when it gets limited to race, is that we don't address that issue that all of you guys just mentioned. Because first thing people pointed out, white cop, black man, so we have this sort of conversation, unarmed, and we're having this conversation about race as if white and black people can't have any sort of interaction. But the ironic thing about all of this is that the cop that was, as people were saying, stop, and it looked, if you kind of look at his body language, it's almost as if some people were like stepping forward and he's telling them to get back, was Asian.
Yeah.
He wasn't white.
Yeah.
And we played this whole unarmed black man. I understand all of that, but the problem here is the actual institution, the teeth of the state that just killed that man, right? That's the issue. But we never get to have that conversation because we're so focused on race. That's the issue. Now, both of you guys brought up a good point about concealed carrying, why we have it, what's the point of it, and to me, that's the instance, right? I've always said that an aggressor is an aggressor. If he has a badge, if he doesn't have a badge, that's still an aggressor. It doesn't matter. And I'm not going out there telling people to go air out cops or anything like that. What I'm saying is that in the event that, let's say, one of those guys that charged that cop to get him off of him, you would have best believe if I came on the show the next day, I would have been defending that person. No matter if they shot him dead, I would have been defending them. That was the right thing to do. And again, that's the uncomfortable conversation that we all have to have, is like, when is that sort of thing appropriate? I've always said that this is like, he's the aggressor here, you know? And if he's the aggressor and if people react that way, the whole concealed carry, whether it be with our weaponry and whatnot, it's not just simply applying to an aggressor that is a citizen. Because I can guarantee you, if that was just 4 or 3 people just standing on top of that man, one on his neck, and they were just regular citizens, somebody would have jumped in.
Yep.
Somebody would have jumped in. It would have been no question. And this is why I say that the issue here right now is with the power that they have and us looking at that like, oh man, I can't do anything. And unfortunately, it's sort of the conversation that we're having here. People defend them at any turn, even when they're in the wrong. So let's have that conversation about this if we actually want some sort of resolution, because what's going to happen is I feel like they're going to end up getting charged, and then it's going to fall out the media cycle, and we're going to forget about it, and then the other thing is going to happen again, and then we're going to play race instead of actually talking about the state.
Yeah. And those of you out there who you're probably a police supporter, just like, you know, the rest of us, would like to remind you, if you do in fact support police, the best thing you can do is call out the bad apples from the good ones. You're not doing yourself any favors to continue to allow and enable bad behavior, ruin the whole bunch. All right.
Can I just say, if I were a true conspiracy theorist, which I'm close.
Oh boy. Well, yeah, I was going to say if you were a true.
There's a lot right here that the timing on this thing with everything else that's going on right now. I mean, I don't like any of this. It stinks to high heaven.
Hey, for whatever reason, the social distancing thing went out the window. I'm seeing these protest blue check marks are authorizing these protests, advocating it, and now all of a sudden, I guess vibes just don't spread when you have protests and you're mad about something. Wait a minute, that's actually not true, because when people were had their guns and they were protesting about this lockdown, those people were mad at them. So it just goes to show that they were always full of crap when it came to the lockdown. I don't want to forget about that.
All great points here at the table. Woo! I feel like I was just taking a church. All right, we'll be back with more. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Laurel Springs. So obviously, as a parent, you want to encourage your children to pursue their dreams and provide opportunities that give them the best chance to succeed at life, right? Sometimes that means optimizing their routine, making it more flexible, more dynamic, so they have time to focus on the things that they really love. That is why there is Laurel Springs out there. Laurel Springs is an accredited online private school for students in K through 12th grade, and they recognize that each child is a unique individual. They have their own personal interests, they have their own unique learning style, and Laurel Springs' flexible learning program offers challenging and diverse elective courses. Now, they are accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, which means their transcripts are recognized by colleges and universities worldwide. I know there's a lot of people who are looking for alternative ways to school your child right now. Would not be a bad decision to look into this. Go to laurelsprings.com/Y today. You can get a waived registration fee if you go there. It is laurelsprings.com/Y. That is WHY, laurelsprings.com/Y. All right, there's a new report out from the CDC. Now, you're probably not going to hear this in mainstream media because it really shatters that whole narrative that the coronavirus isn't the flu. It's way worse, so shut up about that. Well, it turns out for the first time, the CDC has attempted to offer a real estimate of the death rate for COVID-19, and under the most likely scenario, the number is 0.26%. Now, they estimate a 0.4% fatality rate among those who are symptomatic, and then project a 35% rate of asymptomatic cases among those who are infected, which drops that overall infection fatality rate to 0.26. Now, this is, as it turns out, almost exactly where Stanford researchers said that it would end up about a month ago. Eric is just like, this is.
I've been saying this for 3 months. It's frustrating.
I know.
It's so frustrating because I could see it coming a mile away. They can pretend that data was not available from other countries, but it was always available, and it said the same thing. This right there isn't news. It's just one of the government institutions saying, okay, well, we got to admit it now. The cat's out the bag.
Right.
We put almost 40 million, probably more, people out of work for something that is probably even less likely to kill them as they drive home to work.
Yeah.
I think we got to be looking at people that advocating for these lockdowns and a more criminal behavior, because I think that this is a problem here. I don't want this to happen again, but I'm sitting here looking at, I speak from a guy that's in the music industry, seeing all of these different venues. There's no closing down, this reopening. We're not reopening, we're done.
Right.
And that's frustrating to watch. These are people that have their own kids, their own mouths to feed, and their livelihoods are under question. And we put all this fear in all of these individuals for something that's, for most of us, is just simply not the vast majority of people. It's not going to kill you. More than likely not even going to be hospitalized for this. Again, I want to start looking to the people that advocate this, and not just that, they kick the can down the road for months, man. For months, they continue to kick it down the road, even looking at this evidence. Hey, we're going to lock down for another 3 months. It's like, this is absolutely criminal, and I'm looking to whether it be these government officials, governors, and so forth. And I think some people need to be held liable, because that was very, very, very irresponsible. This is I don't want to look back at this and say, as we reopen, it was like, well, it was okay. We didn't know. That was not okay. And this is going to take a lot of time for us to recover, if at all, if we're ever going to get back to that point. And I want to look to some of these government officials and hold them liable for this, because it's on them. I hate when we misspeak and we say the virus did this, the virus, COVID-19 put people out of work. No, the virus didn't do anything. Y'all did that. Y'all did that by forcing people into their homes, forcing people to shelter in place, and making it illegal for them to do business.
Amy.
Yeah, but when do we start asking what are the practical ways that we hold them accountable?
That's true. It's true.
Because we can all sit here, and I think we do. We're all sitting here saying they should be held accountable. They should be this. What do we do?
Yeah.
And where do we go from here? I mean, I know we can try to vote them out. We can try to get them out of office. But ultimately, I think we have to start asking the legitimate question of, like, what can we do to hold these people accountable? Because there are people that are hurting. There are people that are not able to pay their mortgages. I mean, even down to that, what are the practical things that we can do to help Americans at this point? We're not actually addressing any of the practical things. And, you know, it's been hurting everybody. Our business has been affected by it from every bit of the production line. And, you know, it doesn't sell ratings. It doesn't fit an agenda. We already know that's why they're not giving us this information. And, you know, I think we just have to start asking, what can we practically do, and get together and start doing it.
Absolutely.
Chad, I want to bring this into the equation as well, to add to Eric's point about all of the people who are out of jobs. We've also got the health and labor data projecting 65,000 lives lost per month of lockdown in the United States, which is obviously greater than the loss from the virus, because you're talking about 65,000 per month. You know, we've seen several different counties who have reported suicides that they usually see in 1 year, seen in, you know, just a small amount of time because of the lockdowns, presumably. So that factors into the equation as well.
I agree 100% with what you said, especially when you're talking about the jobs that have been shut down. Brad Huntstable came on our show. His son, he did a viral video that said, "My son died from coronavirus, but not how you think." He killed himself because of the social distancing aspect. I was talking with Chad Robichaud just this morning, who is the founder and president of the Mighty Oaks Foundation. They take warriors through their program, these guys want to go in there because they know they're about to kill themselves. They're not worried about catching a cold. They're not worried about a virus. They're going to kill themselves. They've had to shut down all of their programs. They have 4 ranches nationwide. They've had to shut down all of their programs. They can't bring anybody in. Now, for them to be able to reopen after 2.5 months, they can go to a quarter of the capacity at one ranch. It's absolutely ridiculous. So what they're seeing now is a huge uptick in veteran suicides, and not to mention the fact that the VA's counseling services has now gone to Zoom meetings. There is no one-on-one. So, I mean, what do? You take a guy with PTS, a guy who has seen it all, who's been all over the world, been in the sandbox and watched his buddy's blown up, and now he's home ready to eat a bullet. You're going to isolate him? That's the worst thing you can do. So you can save all your, this is where I would normally cuss if you had time to bleep me out. But y'all save the sob stories. I was in a restaurant in Austin this week, and this guy says, "I've lost 3 friends to this damn thing." And I said, "What was wrong with them?" "Nothing was wrong with them." "Where'd they live?" 2 were in Spain, 1 was in Italy. I said, "Shut up." Exactly. Exactly. Stop it. Don't start taking the worst of the worst as a hotbed, epicenter situation example, and then everybody like, I know a cousin's aunt's ex-husband.
So true.
And I'm like, shut up. If I get it, and I've said this on this show, I've said it on my show, if I get it next week and I'm dead in 3 weeks, I still stand by every word I've said.
Same.
You got a 99.7% chance of recovering from this thing. Open this country back up. I mean, Jesse Kelly, God, I hate mentioning Jesse Kelly.
Always mention Jesse.
I mean, Jesse got to say something smart, and I got to quote it, and I'm like, I don't like Jesse Kelly. But Jesse said on Twitter today, he said, okay, well, what happens if we get a virus that requires 7 feet of distancing and not 6? I mean, it's the truth. They've said everything and taken it back. If need masks, don't need masks. It's not on surfaces anymore. Can't pass it from an animal to a person. I mean, what in the world's going on? Yeah. You and I were in my dressing room making out yesterday, and you and I are completely healthy, Sarah. I don't even have a sniffle yet.
You got to determine your own personal risk factor.
I'm willing to take it, boo.
Oh my God.
Anyway, I will say, just to add my portion to the conversation, I do hope that at least the history books look back and reflect on how horribly we treated, especially we treated our mental, the mentally ill.
That's exactly what I wanted to say before Eric got me fired up.
My bad.
It needs to, I mean, there are so many subsets of this nation that we completely forgot about and then claim to talk about how much we really care about.
They have they act like they have the moral high ground. They don't have any of that.
It's the same pattern of the folks on the left who are saying, we're the elites, y'all are the ignorant Trump tards. Yeah. Their word, not mine. And they're better than us. And you're exactly right. We look back now on the Hong Kong flu, we look back on the swine flu, Spanish flu, all these different things, and we say, okay, history judges it. They're going to look back on this one day and they're going to say this was the biggest farce that was ever foisted on the American people in the history of the United States.
Yeah. Amen.
Mark my words.
Amen.
You were right for the last 3 months.
And if they don't say that in history books, that's because they're trying to indoctrinate all our children and they're
Burn
wrong,
those books and send them to that homeschooling thing we just talked about.
By the way, we gotta take a break, but first we want to thank our sponsor, CLT Exam.
Love
so
CLT.
By the way, if you, Joe, we just talked about Laurel Springs. If you just put your kid through this school, maybe it was Laurel Springs. If not, it should have been. Okay, but now you're faced with your kid who needs to take SAT, ACT, whatever that may be, and they can't take any of them because they've just done away with all of the testing, just like everything else. As it turns out, you can't take the SAT and ACT on a Zoom meeting.
Yeah,
you can't.
They've canceled them for this year.
Yeah, they won't do it. They've just completely canceled them. So that is where CLT comes in. It is called the Classic Learning Test. And, high stakes tests like the SAT and ACT drive institution and curriculum. And, you've got the College Board who owns the SAT, who is a far left organization. Just last year, the College Board had students reading Bernie Sanders' op-ed on the SAT. So you've got that factor going on. But the Classic Learning Test, the CLT, has been around for just over 4 years, and they've already been adopted by more than 200 colleges, and nearly every college will now consider CLT scores at least as a supplemental component of application. It's shorter than the SAT and the ACT, and they can do it right now. They're doing it through remote proctoring technology. They have already gone through all of the finalization of this type of technology before this pandemic even hit. They were already prepared for this. Now, the final CLT of the year is June 20th. It is rapidly approaching. So the other tests are canceled. You might as well go for the CLT, okay? If you know a high schooler or have one yourself, don't miss out. Save your seat and register today. You can go to cltexam.com. That is cltexam.com. Spots are very limited. They're filling up very quickly. cltexam.com. All right, we're all about humiliating MSNBC reporters on this show, so let's go ahead and do that. MSNBC reporter Cal Perry was doing a live segment from Lake Geneva, and he was complaining. He was very upset that no one was wearing masks. He was mask shaming everyone, and he got quite the surprise when a bystander turned it around on him and his crew. Watch.
So are the people there just not worried about it, Cal? Are they not worried about their own personal safety?
Cal.
Look at their face.
I haven't met anybody who is. I met some folks actually from Lake Geneva who lived in the area. They were staying a few miles outside of town where I were, and they said they're worried about it. They're worried about that second spike. They're worried about folks coming in from Chicago. But they'll quickly add at the same time, this is a place that relies on that business. I think people here want a little bit more funding when it comes to these programs so that they could stay closed. But again, I think people felt like the Supreme Court made the decision here in Wisconsin that it was time to open up. But you can see here, just around. Nobody's wearing them. Nobody's. There you go, including the cameraman. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Striking images. Cal Perry. Cal, thank you very much. And Kathy Park, you are.
Oh my
Got called out by Ted Danson in a Packers jersey.
I don't even think the guy even realized what he was saying, including the cameraman. Yeah, that's right. Oh, crap.
Oh, crap. None of my staff have masks on.
Yeah, and if
Dang
you
it.
listen, the guy actually, he says, half of your crew are not wearing masks.
Which
is
they
what he
weren't.
says at the
There's
end.
alternative footage
I think it's
online.
him. It's
There is.
him.
He
It's
is.
that
He
guy
is.
on camera,
I
and
can
you
see
can
his.
see all the rest of the guys are hanging out, and they're all like, "Oh crap, we didn't think we were actually going to be on
Camera
camera."
guy even turns towards them. It's one of them minutes. You know, you're like, oh. Cal defers to him. He's like, I mean, look at this guy right here. And the guy's like, yeah, look at all of you.
Oh my gosh.
This is funny. This is like watching National Enquirer television is what this is. This is the star.
bad.
You know what I'm saying?
You love to see it, Eric.
Oh, absolutely. Anything with MSNBC or BSNBC or whatever, taking L's. I'm all about that. All about it.
Well, this mask
All about it,
farce
baby.
is just it's giving people a false sense of security. I went to
And it's a virtue signal that I just can't
Yes,
deal with.
I went to some convenience store the other day, and I see this lady in front of me, and I didn't wear a mask, and she had her mask on. She lays out her hand sanitizers on the buggy, pushes everything around, wipes everything down, shake it up, and then proceeds to use her, ungloved finger to touch the keypad that everybody else has been touching, didn't wipe it down, didn't use it, and then proceeds to touch her face. And I'm like,
So what do they do?
None of it
As
is
soon as you go to check out, you're supposed to have your mask and all this stuff on, which, by the way, the virologists that are out there that are truly being honest with no political gain are saying, don't wear gloves. Don't wear gloves. They're going to turn that debit machine to you, and they expect you to punch in your PIN number that everybody has touched all day long. I mean, it's this.
I know.
People have no idea how germs work. They have no idea.
No, they don't.
But if I sneeze on the cereal in the grocery store, and then somebody comes along and touches it, and then they put it back on the thing, and then some lady rubs her hands through her hair or whatever that virus was, it's gone at that point. It's dead. It's gone. That's it. All right. It's not like thing's just sitting around lurking like the little cartoon COVID thing that's waiting to just jump down your throat. That's just not how it works. And people, they're worrying about, you have no money, you have no idea how much stuff you're ingesting day in and day out, all day long. People swallow, they say like what, a dozen spiders a year while they're sleeping? How much germs you think are, I mean, come on. You and I were just kissing in my dressing room yesterday.
Oh my God, here we go again. This is how rumors get started, Chad. We got to take a
We
break.
really should hire HR around here. Better security. Curtis!
All right, yesterday's poll, do Trump's tweets help or hurt his chances at getting reelected? 64% of you said help. 36% of you said hurt. I don't know. I feel like his base is going to vote for him regardless of whether or not he tweets crazy stuff. Not so much for the independents. That's all I'm saying, guys. All right, love ya, but that's all I'm saying. Today's poll, which celebrity, this is quote, and I'm going to do air quotes because this is in quotations. Which celebrity has the biggest case of TDS? Kathy Griffin, Bette Midler, Alyssa Milano, or Robert De Niro? I think I'm going Alyssa.
I voted on Twitter, and I was shocked. I voted Bette Midler,
Okay.
and I have my reasons for why.
Okay.
Because she's unhinged, but nobody else is voting for Bette.
Yeah, well, that's
The Twitter crowd, maybe they don't know who Bette is.
Pick the underdog, I guess. Who do you think?
I started to feel bad.
Is there a all of the above?
Yeah, I know. That's
I'm
what there
just
needs
gonna. It's just all encompassed for me.
That's what there
Yeah.
needs to be, Eric.
Probably Milano.
Yeah.
Probably Muller. lady's loony, man.
She really
Like,
is.
She really like seriously, like she's.
Yeah.
I don't know though. Is
Yeah,
it
I know.
Kathy? Is she the only one that's actually made death threats
Well, she's loony, too.
towards the president?
They're all
The
crazy.
last one, she's like, I hope he shoves a syringe full of air into himself and kills himself. Okay,
Wow.
Kathy, there's nothing going on up here that's crazy. All right.
I want to date her.
Of course you do.
You know, we were in the dressing room.